inside Russia that we're going to see a collapse because already, even in Russia, you're starting to see protests against the enormous high prices, protests against the staggering casualties they are suffering. And that's there's no casualties coming out of Moscow and St. Petersburg, by the way. These are the poor people that live out in the hinterland that are paying the real price. Um, from the US, what do I expect? Actually, despite the being a few months ago very concerned about what a Trump administration would mean for Ukraine. Uh, there is the potential that President Trump could be persuaded to do a much better job when it comes to helping Ukraine. First of all, he's going to have a lot of leverage over Vladimir Putin that he did not have 8 years ago. President Trump is inheriting a very, very strong U.S. economy. He's got 31 allies already, most of whom, I'm talking about NATO allies, that want to help Ukraine, plus other partners. They are waiting for American leadership and impetus. He can, he's going to benefit from the fact that the Biden administration failed to deliver $2 billion worth of equipment that's still on the table, but it's already been approved. Trump doesn't have to do a thing, and that can still go. So he can tell Putin, he said, hey, you're going to have to come to the table in a realistic way, or I'm going to let this next 2 billion go. No restrictions. They can use it how they want, where they want.
Russia is on the brink of collapse, facing widespread protests over skyrocketing prices and staggering military losses. As the country's internal turmoil deepens, cracks are becoming more visible and ordinary citizens are bearing the brunt of the crisis. If this trend continues, the stakes grow ever higher. Could a change in U.S. leadership shift the war in Ukraine's favor? Ben Hodges argues that growing unrest within Russia, driven by economic hardship and devastating casualties among the lower classes, signals a potential for a shift in U.S. policy under a new president. Leveraging America's economic strength and NATO alliances, the U.S. could force Russia to the negotiating table, possibly changing the trajectory of the conflict. A shift in policy, including the delivery of critical military aid without restrictions, could prove decisive in altering the war's momentum. Meanwhile, a surprising new chapter has unfolded in the war in Ukraine, one that raises troubling questions about the evolving nature of global alliances. An unexpected partnership between Russia and North Korea, initially seen as a potential boon for Russia's struggling military, has taken an unsettling turn. Today, we examine a critical and startling development from the front lines, the mass surrender of North Korean soldiers in the KK region. This event not only threatens to disrupt Russia's military strategy, but also undermines its diplomatic ties with Pyongyang. Russia had turned to its secretive ally, North Korea, to reinforce its forces in Ukraine. As Russian troops faced mounting losses, especially in the KK region, Moscow saw an opportunity to fill gaps with North Korean soldiers, hoping to gain an edge over Ukrainian forces. The arrangement, however, quickly turned into a disaster. The North Korean soldiers, largely unaware they were being sent to fight for Russia, were poorly trained and ill-prepared for modern warfare. Lacking the skills to cope with Ukraine's advanced artillery and drone strikes, many of these soldiers were swiftly decimated. Reports from the front lines indicate that over 4,000 North Korean troops have been killed or wounded since their arrival. Compounding the tragedy, the treatment of these soldiers by both Russian and Ukrainian forces highlights the stark contrast between the two sides. While Ukraine has followed international conventions, providing medical care and humane treatment to the captured soldiers, Russia has subjected them to brutal conditions. Many North Korean soldiers faced starvation, lack of shelter, and inadequate medical attention under Russian command. The disparity between the care given by Ukraine and Russia became a powerful propaganda tool, further demoralizing the North Korean troops. As conditions worsened, disillusionment set in. Many North Korean soldiers began to realize they had been deceived by both Moscow and their own government. The promise of heroic service quickly turned into a nightmare, with soldiers left to fight without proper training or resources. For some, the choice became clear: face certain death under Russian command or surrender to Ukrainian forces. Ukraine's I Want to Live initiative, which offers a safe surrender for disillusioned soldiers, was extended to North Koreans, providing a lifeline for those seeking to escape the horrors of the front lines. As the number of surrenders grew, Russia's position in the region weakened. Not only were they losing control of strategic territory, but their alliance with North Korea was now in jeopardy. The mass defections could force Moscow to reconsider its reliance on Pyongyang, potentially collapsing the partnership altogether. For North Korea, the embarrassment of its soldiers' surrender could lead to a diplomatic fallout, as Pyongyang's leadership attempts to preserve its image. This turn of events also opens up new opportunities for Ukraine. The captured North Korean soldiers could be used as bargaining chips in future negotiations, and their stories, if made public, could stir unrest within North Korea itself. The exposure of the harsh realities faced by these soldiers in Russia could lead to further defections, destabilizing Kim Jong-un's control over his own military and population. In conclusion, the mass surrender of North Korean soldiers marks a pivotal moment in the Ukraine conflict, revealing the flaws in Russia's military strategy and exposing the exploitation of foreign fighters. This development could have far-reaching implications, not only on the battlefield but also in the fragile relationship between Moscow and Pyongyang. As the situation unfolds, it's clear that the consequences of this alliance and its collapse could reshape the geopolitical landscape of the war. Stay tuned for further updates and analysis as we continue to track the developments in this ongoing conflict. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments below.